Ronnie, I know you, I sense that you typically feel a certain amount of anxiety around how I open our conversations, just because you don't know.
It's true. I don't know what question you're going to ask me or throw
Yeah,
at me, just
yeah.
so that people listening know this part's never rehearsed in any way. So, what you got?
Yeah, so sometimes it's not even that well thought out. But I was thinking today, just in anticipation of our guest today, that we've had the opportunity to visit with a lot of people who have accomplished quite a bit. I don't know that we have had someone who is officially in a hall, and today we get to welcome someone who is among the DMAW Hall of Leaders Award recipients, and that's Roger Hiyama.
Thank you.
Roger, uh, that honestly, that is quite the accomplishment to be recognized among your peers in such a um, elevated way.
Well, it is. And, I think it hit me last year as I was preparing for the Hall of Leaders award ceremony. And you think of people in our industry, and I think of folks like Austin Kiplinger. I think of folks like Richard Viguerie, Roger Craver. It's amazing that both Roger and Richard are still very active in the industry. And, when I first started, close to 40 years ago, they were on pedestals at that time. And for me to be even mentioned in the same sentence or on the same listing as those three is pretty remarkable. But I'm
Mm.
very humbled by the honor. But hopefully it represents some of what I've tried to do in my career and trying to further not only our industry, but certainly the Direct Marketing Association of Washington as an organization. So it's very
Yeah.
humbling.
Man, I was already really excited for this conversation, and now I'm even more so. And so, welcome to Group Thinkers. I'm your host, Justin McCord. With me, as always, is a huge fan of Halls, and that's Ronnie Richard, big Hall fan. And so today we have Roger Hiyama on the show. Roger is Executive Vice President of Solutions and Innovation at Wiland. And if you're a regular listener, you know that as a part of what we do here is that we have chats with folks that think differently in the nonprofit space, someone who's approaching something differently or has an alternate outlook and a way for us to constantly challenge ourselves and iron sharpen iron through our discussions. And so excited today to continue our most recent focus, which is on leadership and lessons of leadership with you, Roger. And so I want to start here with you. What one word would you use to describe leadership?
One word. Well, I'm actually going to maybe throw out a few words and then I'll pick a word. How's that? So when I think of the one word that comes to mind when I think of leadership, certainly one is trust. Having the ability to have others trust in you, because having a leader without trust is really not a leader. The other one that comes to mind is courage, right? So courage is the ability for one to step out of the shadows and want to make a difference or have a greater impact. And then the other one that really comes to mind, and if I can use a hyphen, but it's team building, right? So within our work environment, nothing gets done by yourself.
Mm.
And so when I think of leadership, at least in a work environment, it's somebody that's a team builder.
Hmm.
Uh,
Those are all great words. They really are. Um, the just before we hit record, we were talking about some of the ways that work looks different now than it has in the 4 decades that you've been a part of this business. Do any one of those words have a new or different meaning for you in this current work environment?
well, I think certainly the team building has changed, and even anything related to relationships. So relationships could have been another word as it relates to leadership. But if anything, in our new kind of semi-remote hybrid work environments, um, it's become more difficult to build teams without direct face-to-face contact all the time. I mean, think of the way that we collaborate normally, right? It's in a room. There's a whiteboard. It's you can see body language. You know when somebody wants to add on to what you're saying. You know when they're uh, kind of listening and not really quite agreeing. A lot of those things are lost in our Zoom world. So certainly, our remoteness is very different. I had commented that, you know, we don't travel like we used to. I used to be on an airplane, it seems like 4 or 5 times a month. And since March of 2020, I think I've been on maybe 6 different business trips. Now, certainly living in the Washington area, we have a lot of in-person events with the association. So, I go to a lot of those. But in terms of travel to meetings, I had a meeting last week where I was picked up at a train station and we went to a coffee bar for an hour and a half because the person's working remotely, separate and apart from the rest of her company. And there's only certain things you can do on Zoom. And when you need to have deeper, more important discussions, I always think it's great to have, face to face. So,
Yeah, not only that, my Marriott rewards has fallen significantly. My loyalty has, not of my own accord, has fallen
yeah.
off, and that's an adjustment for us as well. Yeah.
Roger, when you think about the environment that we're in now, as you were just kind of talking about meeting someone in person to have those conversations, as a leader, do you have to approach it differently? Do you have to be intentional about the way you interact with your coworkers and things like that in this, Zoom virtual environment?
Well, I think it varies by situation, but I think one of the challenge with uh, having meetings on Zoom is certain people can hide and or they get lost because you don't have that body language, right? In a in-face meeting. And I think, what I've tried to do, in fact, I was just off of a meeting with a volunteer committee on membership. And it's really important to reach out to individuals that haven't had a chance to speak. Uh, some of the best ideas are the ideas that are never said. And, I think uh, I was moderating the meeting. I was among a group of industry leaders, but you really need to draw people into conversations when you're working just on screens.
Yeah, you talk about like building teams, and that that is something that's a constant, whether or not you're in a room together or not. Your career, you've built teams throughout your career, and so when you reflect on that, you've been at multiple different nonprofit marketing agencies and other nonprofit marketing partners such as Wiland. Um, I'm curious what experiences through that time have shaped shaped you to define the approach that you take now in your role at Wiland?
Yeah, so I have a great job at Wiland, and I guess the reason why I'm in this role is I've had a varied uh, career. I'm one of the few persons in our company that has a lot of agency experience. I have had a career where I've been focused on full service agency work, needing to understand all the things of strategy, data, copy, creative, production, listed media, human resources, all of that. But that's built on a foundation of how I came into the business, which was really all data and database and analytics. And so, one of the things people ask me, so why did you go back to Wiland? So, for those that don't know, I was at Wiland for about 7.5 years, right straight out of college. Moved to the East Coast from Colorado, and ended up leaving Wiland and went to work in a direct mail production company for about 10 months. I realized that my passion was really in data, so I went to work for another database service bureau, primarily focusing on what's today called CRM, but in the day it was database management services. And I left there and went to Merkle, which really started a real important part of my career, where I was able to really combine the data to drive strategy in an agency environment. And I did that with Merkle for, I guess, close to 9-10 years, and then joined the Moore Group, Barton Cotton CDR, before eventually ending up with Russ Reed. But the reason why I wanted to go back to Wiland was I really missed the data aspect. And I'm one of those guys, when I see a wall of numbers, I like to try to understand what the most important numbers are and determine what are the significant takeaways from a wall of numbers. And my role at Wiland really allows me to do that, but with the knowledge of what the industry, not only the nonprofits, but also our broker and agency partners are really needing to accomplish in their day-to-day jobs. And so certainly having that broader perspective of the industry has really helped me try to drive solutions and different innovation to meet our clients' needs as a cooperative database partner.
That's quite a long and incredible journey you've had in your career. I've heard Justin say this term before, when we have an employee leave and come back, calls it a boomerang employee. Yeah, so that boomerang was out there with Wiland for a while and then came back. So I was curious, you've had a lot of experience in data and analytics and strategy and all these various roles. You've probably seen it change a whole lot over time. What is your impression of that? How does that look different now in the way data and strategy are used than it did, say, 20 years ago?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Ronnie. There's certainly a lot more technology tools, and especially now with the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Certainly within our work here at Wiland, the models we build today are very different than the regression type models from yesteryear. But I still think that the models that we build are only as good as the data that's used to build those models. And I think when I look back 20, 30 years ago, the industry has changed, but it hasn't changed that much. Yeah, my wife likes to shoot me sometimes because I'll collect all the direct mail pieces that I've received in a month or so, and I'll take them to the office and I'll lay them out and I look at the packages. And it's hard to beat a control that's a great control. And you've seen many controls that have lasted 10, 15 years. I mean, the fact that we're still using name label stickers as a freemium, that doesn't change much from the days where there was that little pad of stickers in an envelope. And so you look back and you say, well, how much has really changed? And the reality is, I think one of the bigger changes in our industry happened about, gosh, it must have been 20 plus years ago when Target Analytics Group created their cooperative database in nonprofits. And really, that was a pretty significant change for the nonprofit industry. It had been going on certainly in catalog and the for-profit direct-to-consumer business. But for nonprofits, that was really kind of a defining point. And since that point in time, Target Analytics Group closed its doors in December, but there are 6 to 8 different cooperative databases, of which Wiland is one, that have really taken what TAG started and created a pretty significant footprint on the data side in our business.
Yeah, it's interesting because to your point, like identifying patterns in numbers hasn't changed.
Right.
But it's how you identify them, right? That has, and in many cases, what numbers we're looking at. The inputs and the way that we get there has changed. When you reflect on your time, Roger, both in agency and at cooperative data partners like Wiland, et cetera. You mentioned at the outset, the likes of a Roger Craver or Richard Viggory. Who are a handful of people who have mentored you over your career, and what lessons did you learn from them?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the very first lesson that I probably recall, and it was actually from my mother, and it was in college, and I was a freshman in college. It was right around mid-October, November of my freshman year, and I was kind of disgruntled. I'm like, gosh, am I in the right place? Am I doing what I should be doing? Did I go to the right school? And she said, you know what? Your problem is you need to get both feet in. You need to commit to something. And if you don't like the way things are going, then only you can change it. And that was a great bit of advice that I've carried with me throughout my life. But it was really important. From a professional perspective, there are probably maybe three people that have had a significant impact. One is Phil Wiland. There's no surprise why I went to work for Phil Wiland. For me, he embodies the real key things that are important in business. It's honesty, it's integrity, it's doing the right thing. He has a lot of Phil Wilandisms that I just take to heart. One of them is faith, family, and work in that order. So that's pretty cool, right? Another one is don't do anything that only do things that benefit the customer. Like if your heart's in the right place, you're going to benefit in the long term. And we're in business to serve customers. Whether you've got a lemonade stand or whether you have a database cooperative business, you need to do the right thing and be that. But Phil Wiland to me is all about honesty, integrity, being kind, caring, and that's really served me a lot. And so when I went back to Wiland, I knew I was going back into that culture, and that's really important, especially as you get closer towards the end of your career. A second person was a gentleman by the name of Fielding Yost, and Fielding is CEO of Saturn Corporation. Saturn was really one of the larger database organizations serving nonprofits back in the early 90s. And what Fielding taught me was to think bigger. And you know, Fielding was also a very good relationship person, but he really taught me that there's something beyond the little world that we work in. He was the first to really start doing CRM work for nonprofits in Europe and from the US. And I learned a ton about business, about people, about developing and innovating, and going outside of your box, if you will. And then the last person I would mention is David Williams. David Williams was our CEO at Merkle. David was just a really smart business person and a great leader. I look back to the things that we learned at Merkle and some of the constructs of the way we approach numbers and analytics and strategy. Those are real key things. But also in the way that you manage a business and from the, you know, how do you look at your staff? How do you develop your staff? What are the key attributes that you should look for as you're recruiting people for your team? And I never forget, you know, curiosity was a big one. And I think that especially in the analytics and data side of the world, if you're not curious, you won't learn much. And I think curiosity is a big attribute that is sometimes overlooked, but certainly very important. Does that help answer that question a little bit, Ronnie?
Absolutely. Those are some incredible lessons, especially the curious one. I've personally always tried to use that in my career, and I started as a journalist, so kind of being curious and asking questions is sort of natural to me. Thinking about, you know, just kind of thinking about some of those lessons you learned about integrity and thinking bigger and and curiosity and things like that. When you look at kind of the state of the nonprofit industry today and marketing today, it's incredibly complex. You know, you talked about numbers haven't changed, but there's a lot more numbers now and a lot more tools out there to look at them. But then you also are dealing with the kind of the post-pandemic world we're in, the supply chain issues, you know, changing results, kind of regressing to the mean for some nonprofits, all these things kind of converging at once. As you look at all of these things, how do you apply those lessons that you've learned over the years to what's happening today?
Yeah, good question. You know, our world has gotten more complicated. Our marketing has become not only more challenging, but certainly more opportunities. You know, for so many years, we focused primarily on single channels or maybe one or two channels. And I'm not sure that I'm a proponent of the word omni-channel because I don't know that anybody's really doing omni-channel marketing. But certainly integrated multi-marketing, multi-channel marketing is happening all around us. And I think, you know, as I look at the industry, there are more and more opportunities to spend your marketing dollars. I think one of the challenges is still that from a measurement perspective, we're not great yet at attributing impact to the dollars that get spent. And I think that's one of the things that's going to hold back marketers into the future is not being able to measure the impact of a multi-channel touch versus a single touch. And there's always reluctance, I think, to make changes. So many people will continue down the single or spending most of their money on a single channel, when in effect, if they had the ability to measure the impact, they would certainly split up their expenditure in more meaningful, more impactful, and in an optimized fashion. And I think that's one of the challenges. You had mentioned earlier about data and analytics, and certainly one of the areas, even as we do our modeling at Wiland, is, it's interesting to think that the same principles we use in developing response models for direct mail, we can also now use those same principles in building response models for impression level data. I can map a digital display impression through our identity graph back to an individual person. I can map the responders either through click-through data or platform attribution, or even through a matchback attribution to identify the responders. And as such, I can build a much more sophisticated model similar to the response models that we build for other channels. And I think, that's been enlightening to me, that there's just a tremendous amount of data. There are all kinds of different modeling techniques. And there's a world beyond lookalike modeling, which is the way most platforms work, right? And we know from our work on the co-op side that response models are more predictive and more robust than lookalike profile models. And I just think as we move forward into the next 15, 20 years, it's going to be the ability to harness all of that data and then make heads or tails out of it to determine what's working and what's not working, right? And I think that's always been the challenge. In a world where you're getting a 1% response rate, what happened to the other 99%? Well, the people that are going to win at this game are going to really harness the data available to them and do it in ways where they can determine the effectiveness of each dollar spent.
If I were to summarize, Roger, what I'm hearing from you, and we're so thankful for the chance to have this conversation. It's something in the neighborhood of keep the main things the main thing and keep being curious. Like, it's those things together are they're things that you have exemplified, but they're also things that we need to carry us forward so that we can be successful in helping nonprofits deliver on their mission.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sums it up pretty well. The other thing that, as I look to mentor people, even within our own company, work is certainly very important. But from my personal perspective, I've been able to supplement my work experience with getting involved in other things. And whether you're getting involved as a coach on your youth little league, your son or daughter's youth sports team, or if you're volunteering at the local food pantry, or if you're volunteering, Justin, as you do as well, and in this case, this year, you're very, very involved as the co-chair of the 2023 Bridge Conference. Those are things that help you not only personally, because they provide a lot of satisfaction and enrichment, but the work that you're doing is really furthering our industry. And one of the things that I tried to do from college all the way through my work life is I've tried to have another piece of me helping the betterment of something else. And the one thing that I've chosen to do is to help our industry as it thrives and grows and evolves into the future. And Justin, thank you for the work that you're doing as well.
Oh, Roger, that's very, very kind of you. And I agree with you. I think that, we all need to think about the nonprofit marketing space as something that we're holding, and that it's our responsibility to carry forward, and to always leave a place better than the way that you found it. And certainly you've done that, and I hope that that I'm able to do such, and Ronnie, and that everyone who works in the sphere. I mean, I think that without fail, everyone that we talk to, when you talk about, how they ended up in this strange land that we work in, none of them set out to do it, but everyone finds a greater sense of purpose by doing so. And we would be foolish to not care for that sense of purpose for those that come behind us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Roger, we could certainly take all of your time today while you're in office and continue the chat, but we're very thankful for the chance to visit with you, to learn a little bit about your path and the lessons that you've learned over time, and are excited to see how you continue to make an impact both at Wiland and in the broader nonprofit marketing industry. So thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Ronnie, and thanks, Justin. Appreciate it, and I love the work that you're doing here, and just glad to have been able to participate. Thank you.
No, absolutely. So that's going to wrap it up for this conversation. You can find all of our episodes of Group Thinkers on wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you like to watch them. So be sure to check those out. We also have other resources available on RKD's website at rkdgroup.com. And so until next time, Ronnie, any final hall related words?
I have several halls in my house.
It's good.
Is that poignant and okay?
Very poignant. Yeah. It was a long walk to get there. Walking down them. Yeah. All right. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time. See you down the road.
Thank you very much.